Any more than they would allow, the French would allow casinos to be built on the battlefields along the Somme or the Ardennes or Verdun. Any more than the Poles would build a casino a half a mile away from the Katyn forest or a half a mile away from Auschwitz. We are not just money machines. Stop insulting us with your big pocketbooks and your big checkbooks and your vain, stupid, silly promise of jobs. We are a free people! You think you're talking to children here? We are human beings of flesh and blood and memory and history and family. Part of our humanity is an acute awareness of what is sacred and holy and deserving of our respect. The casinos in France are not just a half a mile away from the battlefields of their honored dead. They're on the other side of the country. If they were any further away, they'd be in the Mediterranean Sea. But why stop at Gettysburg? Maybe we should build casinos at the site of the World Trade Center. Heck, that'll create some jobs, right? Heck, that'll help the tax base, right?
Right.
I mean, those people are dead. Why should we worry about them? Those 3,000 who died at the World Trade Center. We got to move on with our lives, right? We're supposed to be sentimental? We're supposed to remember people who are now gone? Let's get on with our lives and our profits. Because what the heck else matters but our profits? Maybe we should have a casino at Yorktown. How about Valley Forge? What is Gettysburg, after all? A few miles of earth, grass, fence rows, cannon, monuments. Is that it? Are we just imagining that it's anything else? I sometimes think that the world is divided into two kinds of people, those who live in 3 dimensions and those who live in 1. Those who live in 3 dimensions live simultaneously in the past, the present, and the future. And when you live in 3 dimensions at the same time, you realize, as Edmund Burke once said, that those of us who live in the present at any given time are the trustees of the past during our lifetime, and to hand it over to the next generation, so that the dead and the unborn are as much part of life as we are in the minuscule amount of years we have to inhabit this earth. When we are aware of the past, it means we respect the past, respect our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and the generations all the way back to the beginning of recorded history. It means we read with exhilaration the historical works of Thucydides, or the artistic works of Aristophanes and Sophocles, reaching back over the millennia, which informs us, which makes us who and what we are, and which enlivens us and which broadens our small world into a world of infinite space. An infinite space of thinking, of contemplation, and of realizing our kinship with the many generations that have gone before us. It means as well that we cherish the place where we grew up and where we regard, as you may recall from the opening credits of Gods and Generals, where we regard astronomy as belonging to that little lot of stars that we see hanging over our backyards every night. If we are fortunate enough to live in a place that is not dulled by light pollution all night long. It means that we cherish that homeland, that home place where we first realized there was such a thing as trees and grass and wilderness and wildlife, open sky. We all started off our lives in a place. We are rooted in those places. They are what make us who we are. It is what we call home. Then, of course, there are those who live only in the present. Now, we're moving through the present, and along this road, if we're not aware of the other dimensions, if we do not know the past, or know it but disregard it or disrespect it, then it's easy to pave over a Civil War battlefield in Chancellorsville, or tear down the old Metropolitan Opera House in New York City. It's easy, if we call ourselves the Taliban, to blow up the World Heritage bombing Buddhist statues in Afghanistan, because none of that matters to us in our own grand egoism. In our instant of life, in the long spectrum of life, we are the masters of the universe at that moment. And we don't care what happens to the next generation. We don't care if all the forests are turned into pulp. We don't care if all the open spaces are paved over. We don't care if there are no species left on the planet but human beings and cockroaches. What does it matter? As long as we achieve the only thing that is important for the present tense, our own bottom line. My friends, make no mistake about this. This is Mammon knocking at the gates of Gettysburg.
Right.
Strip away their fancy arguments and their fancy arguments. This will be a handful of people, a handful, count them on one hand, making enormous profits at the expense of everybody else.
Right. Amen.
And of course, we shouldn't care what happens to Gettysburg next year or in the next decade or in the distant future, as long as we can profit from it now while we're here in our brief hour. In this view, as Shakespeare wrote, life is nothing more than a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more, a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. There are thousands of casinos. There is only one Gettysburg. I have walked this battlefield many times. I have stepped where the men in blue and gray stepped. I have lain in the tall grass where they have fallen. I have reimagined that fiery ordeal in a motion picture which took me 15 years to make, for which I sold my house, burned up my life savings, went broke and in debt. I didn't bleed like the soldiers who fought here 140 years ago, but I did make my own personal sacrifice in my own small human way. That's why I can stand here today with no shame, with no hesitation, with no doubt in my voice, and tell you this is a special place. And in the years I have studied and labored and made my movie in this place, the many years, 15 years, before and up to making the movies, and in the years since, I've come to know the people of Gettysburg. They too, like the land, thank God, are a special, hardy breed. They have protected this place for the decades since the battle was fought, and they will do so again and again and again, from whatsoever and whomsoever threatens it. I know, as sure as I'm standing here today, that you, the people of Gettysburg and Adams County, will not be seduced by the lure of quick money. You'll not be fooled by the promise of jobs. You'll not be bamboozled by the rosy projections that your taxes will go down. When has that ever happened in the history of the human race? You folks will not sell out your heritage, your history, or your soul, or your ancestors for any price. You will do as you have always done. You will keep this place close to your hearts in trust for your children and your children's children. You will keep it for your country and in memory of your ancestors whose trickling blood watered this ground on July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 1863. There are thousands of casinos. There is only one Gettysburg. And I'll leave you with this thought. We have Robert E. Lee here tonight, General Grant, and if General Meade were here, he would raise his voice as well. They're asking you for one more good fight. Don't let them down.
Wow.